Hello, my name is Claire Barrett. Today, you're going to get some insights and tips on how to bring APIs to life, specifically at medium and large-sized companies in incumbent industry sectors. This is important because organizations of all shapes and sizes are continuing to expand their API opportunities and portfolios into increasingly sophisticated business models and use cases. As they do so, APIs become inextricably linked with their digitalization ambitions and their day-to-day delivery plans. This is putting pressure on API-related teams and individuals. They need to both stay abreast of the big picture, what's happening in the external environment, and they need to do this while executing on decisions that may have been made earlier and with a very different strategic context. I live in the countryside, and since moving, I'm more conscious of nature and the seasons changing than when I lived in cities. I have a robin in my garden who knows that humans are a fast track to food and treats. In between his busy periods of mating, nest building, or feeding chicks, he hangs out in the hope of a dropped breadcrumb or a crust of cheese. He travels short distances, from nest to table to bird feeder to a safe hideout under a bush, back to the nest or a branch of a tree. He's never on the wing or out in the open for more than a few yards. He's close to the action. He's able to respond quickly to new threats, the neighbor's cat, or to a sudden change in weather. Meanwhile, high in the sky, when the day and the time is right, I'll get to see and watch a buzzard picking up an upward draft off a hill, soaring effortlessly high above the fields and houses, scanning the horizon, waiting and watching, occasionally making a sudden swoop down to catch prey or visit a nest, and then back up on the wing. The challenge for people driving API adoption is knowing when to be a robin and when to be a buzzard. Why is this important? It's particularly important for three types of people and teams: those who are leading API programs or API adoption, people who are wanting to partner with or market their API-related products and services to large and medium-sized organizations, to understand the API climate at their clients or prospects. And thirdly, for people looking at taking up API roles in large or medium-sized organizations to understand the challenges, the API challenges facing their potential teams or hiring managers. I'm a consultant, so I'm choosing not to share specific case studies, but to talk about fictional, generic roles, challenges that we see consistently in organizations, the challenges facing people on the ground. Could be you, could be your colleagues, could be your clients, your partners, or people that you might be working with. I'm going to talk about today the digital transformation strategic context, really more as a reminder rather than a why. I'm not going to talk about why APIs are important, but more the challenges that people are facing with executing on their API agenda or helping others get more out of their API-related investments. I'm going to talk about it in terms of how it could play out, or we see it playing out in three different types of scenarios, three different types of digital transformation execution. Bring to life a little bit about what it feels like on the ground and where to face some of the big picture challenges, environmental changes that are going on, how people need to be able to keep a buzzard eye's view on the horizons while executing on a day-to-day basis for APIs as a robin, and what this means from a people perspective. Should be no issue for anyone at an API Days conference to argue that APIs aren't going anywhere fast. Arguably, they're just becoming more pervasive. For many, this means they're no longer the realm of the tech function. There's an inextricable connection between APIs and the value they're delivering in realizing business strategies. Based on the research about how many transformation initiatives are falling short of expectations, it's clear that APIs are a foundational capability that people want to get right. There's a plethora, many studies, research papers, and commentary from researchers, analysts, advisors on why organizations choose to embark on ambitious and far-reaching digital transformation initiatives. These are the overarching context, the why for big investment, and APIs are invariably a part of it. In fact, many would argue they're one of the planks of bringing those technology types of capabilities to life. They provide the buzzard's view, if you like, and this commentary is also summarizing the progress that people are making. Perhaps one could cynically add, like mainstream media, the negative or failure rate types of headlines for transformation success or failure are attracting attention. But here's one picked out to summarize what we're seeing consistently, which is that most organizations are going through some form of what they would define as a large-scale digital transformation. And significantly that those representing the sort of top economic performing companies are the ones that are more likely than their peers to be getting value in return from these efforts, i.e. these are the ones that are not experiencing the failures as much. The sorts of things that they are doing, also taken here from some McKinsey insights, describe in this table here on the left the activities, the digital transformation types of activities that are making the most difference. The table further to the left of this table are the ones that are the things that are being adopted by the organizations that are realizing the biggest impact or the high performance results as a consequence of going through their digital transformation. And these things focus on people and operating model elements, specifically investing in programs that align talent and outcomes with the motivations and incentives for the people and teams that are making the digital transformation come to life. And importantly, in the operating model sense, the companies that are getting the most out of that are performing the best are investing in digital transformation activities that are around a high degree of business and technology collaboration. And many are changing the traditional funding model of project-based investment portfolios with, let's say, for example, annual and quarterly investment cycles to long-running product funding bases. What seems to be consistent, not just with organizations that we talk to and the people on the ground, is the amount of work and change that is happening in these organizations is playing out for leaders and middle managers experiencing a degree of busyness that is leading to a lot of stress. This is a sobering study from O.C. Tanner earlier this year that describes the impacts on the amount of change that is going on for people. And I believe a lot of that is because they're running the day-to-day. They've got the Robin day-to-day views and responsibilities, but they're also needing to stay up to speed with big picture change. I'm going to talk about 3 fictional examples of types of industries and businesses that are undertaking API change of this type and how it's playing out for people. My caveat is that no children or animals were harmed in the product of this. These are fictional scenarios, and they're not about throwing mud at things that are broken, but being shining a light, if you like, on where people are genuinely looking for help and guidance and finding things harder perhaps than they should do. So my first scenario is an organization in a highly regulated sector. Think banking, insurance, maybe a large federal government department with tens of millions of customers or citizens, processing billions of transactions. For this fictional organization, their digital transformation is a shipbuilding exercise. They're managing a lot of legacy tech. They're undertaking, they've been at this for at least 2 years already. A lot of their API investments going into renovating and overhauling this tech landscape to make one that is faster, that's easier to change, that's more modular. They're investing and building on their tried and tested large-scale, difficult project execution skills and expertise to make this transformation happen. And what this is actually feeling like. So if we were to ask them kind of what's your report card looking like from an API perspective, how's it really going? Well, the API disciplines and governance, this is a regulated industry, remember, is generally pretty healthy. There's a good understanding of what APIs have been created and or planned. The governance processes are working well. And there's a good, healthy degree of understanding across the organization about at least kind of the API concept for integration. However, where there's some work needed is on moving the API direction and leadership from a tech responsibility to more of a collaborative one. Because of the scale at which APIs are now growing, the API portfolio is growing fast. It's creating some sprawl. It is creating a risk of bottlenecks in the API governance function, and the size of a number of APIs, particularly those potentially facing externally as well as internally, is changing and heightening, changing the operational risk profile associated with managing those. The API product mindset is also one that's needing attention. So that's what's happening, if you like, from the Robin's perspective. And meanwhile, we've got Buzzard-like questions coming into the team related to how to get more out of the API investment made to date. Where are new API revenue sources expected to come from? Where are savings going to be realized from this simpler tech landscape that the API composability agenda is helping us realize? How is AI going to give us further savings through API development? And how are we finding and keeping some of the best API people that we need to now have in-house? This was integration, perhaps a capability we'd outsourced in the past. We're now looking to get this more in-house and finding that we are needing to compete with non-traditional competitor talent pools for these kinds of skills. So for this shipbuilding type of transformation initiative, the focus for high-level activities where our people need to be really soaring is all about the stakeholder management. This is business stakeholders earlier, more often, colleagues as customers, engineers, thinking about the customer as an engineer, using colleagues as advocates for the role of technology, consuming APIs, managing stakeholders with partners. This is, and in terms of diving more deeply, the kind of the Robin activities, this is about getting really crunchy on value out of every API design related activity, making sure that the opportunities for reuse of the existing APIs is a really valued and continuously invested in piece, that there's plenty of fresh thinking coming in at early in API conceptualization, and that the success stories and proof points of API success are being fed back up consistently into the bigger picture on stakeholders. I've called out funding here. This tends to be one for the shipbuilding style of transformation activity that is still project investment based, and it inevitably becomes a question and an attention point. The second scenario is the major, we've labelled it major surgery. I had to choose this metaphor from, kind of stolen it from a version that MIT Centers for Information Systems Research, MIT CISR, has used. McKinsey is also an example of one of the parties providing executive insights on the things that are important for wide-scale digital transformational change, and this is to really rethink the operating model around digital products. The kinds of organizations, and the scenario I've chosen here is very relevant in FMCG businesses, large branded, familiar brand companies that are undergoing a big change from having, and they've got a product mindset and product structure, often even quite potentially, dare I say, siloed, either geographically or product by product in terms of the way that their traditional systems and investments have followed. And they are embracing at a significant level a digital technology-like product thinking and mindset, and this is being recognized as API investment in API monetization, in new data API product offerings and opportunities, and looking at delivering really fast, innovative turnaround in the design opportunities. How's this playing out on the ground? If you like what's the API report card for this fictional major surgery business transformation program? Well, the executive strategic support for this change is going really well. There's lots of great blue sky thinking happening early in the piece, and ex-tech staff team members who join the organization are bringing in a lot of fresh thinking. However, there's work to do in making that change ripple through and translate for, if you like, for people whose roles have been more traditionally in the Robin style of day-to-day work. So and that's not just in the technology function. There's work that this organization is needing to look at to bring more of its adjacent teams, whether that's finance, legal, risk, support functions, maybe HR, to bring them into this broader digital end-to-end product view. So this is a significant amount of change, even though there are people coming into the organization saying, well, API is like, duh, it's not a big change. We've been talking about these for years. They're finding that still there are many people in the this legacy environment who are getting their heads around how APIs as products can make a significant difference and realize the big strategic goals that have been set for the organization. These big picture questions, the same ones, and what that's actually playing out for, what's needed to be done for these people is to be thinking about how to it's almost like you're jumping from the train to the plane while they're both moving. It can feel like a bit of a mission impossible. But in reality, recognizing the people factors is the Buzzard activity in this piece. It's really bringing people along with the change, continuously educating and advocating. Because of the executive support for this type of, and the funding has been effectively addressed, the funding problem, the day-to-day Robin activities are about finding the places where API success can happen and be demonstrated quickly. I call this pushing on the open doors, finding places where you can get sounding board feedback from people who understand API products and can help role model and show what an API product design actually looks and feels like. This is interesting because it's not usually the traditional customers. This is actually thinking about API engineer customers. It's about building confidence. The third and last scenario I'm going to choose is a kind of organization whose digital transformation is about social activism. This might even be a business unit within some larger organization, but imagine this is an innovator, the kind of startup that's building a platform to address a big social problem: homelessness, financial exclusion, cleaning up the planet. The kind of organization that wants to recruit and retain people who are looking to work at an organization that's clearly doing good in the world. This business's API-related investments are going to be aligned with its stated values. They're contributing to open source communities and platforms. They're pursuing green software development practices, ethical AI. They're offering APIs that enable partners and customers to collaborate in new and creative ways. How are they getting on? They're getting great support from people who want to work with them and invest in them. They are getting really good traction with organizations who want to partner with ESG, with them based on their ESG credentials for their own supply chains. But they are needing to stay vigilant about living up to their ESG promise. Their APIs need to be designed with all the right credentials and support and documentation and transparency for them to be able to stand up as ethical, open, and resilient. And of course, they need to work on ensuring that their API metrics line up with their needs. They're also subject to these same big questions about what's going on financially, how is AI going to play out, what's the socio-demographic changes that are going to impact them. And this is calling for them to soar, to take a Buzzard kind of view around keeping their talent, culture, and strategy tightly in lockstep. It's effectively a leadership matter for everyone. They're needing to be diligent and disciplined about how they select and maintain and stay up to date with their partnering options, and be close day to day with the design and delivery about and build a real muscle around API-enabled experimentation, spending time with getting continuous customer feedback around new API product opportunities, and supporting people with giving things a go and having permission to learn along the way. Of course, keeping the DEI, diversity, equality, inclusion agenda front of mind and ensuring it filters through to all levels of the organization is key. So all of these can be playing out, but sometimes even in more than one of them in organizations right now. And to our mind, this is one of the reasons why, if not understood and acknowledged, is creating some of the personal stresses that people are telling us they're feeling and experiencing, and that the research is bearing out, but where they need support. So takeaways for this are that for API people and teams, or the people supporting or working with them, Remember the strategic context for their API direction, transformation-related activities is not constant, it's moving. This is creating pressures on delivery, but to make sense of it and to manage it pragmatically, there are practical ways to manage this balance. It's about keeping a Robin's view and a Buzzard's perspective together at the same time. If you'd like to talk to us more about how to set up and maintain this balance in your organization or understand what it might mean for your clients or partners, reach out to us, to me on LinkedIn, or contact us on our website. We will be delighted to hear from you. Thank you very much for your time today.